This is the Venturing Angler Podcast. I'm Tim Harden. In this episode, we're talking with Justin Miller of the Fly Shop in Redding, California. He's a favorite guest for a good number of people. He's fun to talk to. He's been all over the world. He's as passionate of an angler as I've ever met, and he's a lot of fun. Let's chat with Justin. All right, we're here with Justin Miller. Justin, welcome back to the Venturing Angler Podcast.
Am I supposed to say something?
I guess I expected you to, but that was unfair of me.
Thanks, pal. Great to be here.
All right, so we've done, I think, 3 podcasts. 2 were about Kamchatka. One was specifically the Kamchatka Steelhead Project, and then the other was about fly fishing for Atlantic salmon, also in Russia. But one thing that is missed in these topical podcasts is just the fact that you're interesting in your own right, for a lot of reasons, but in this case, for the number of places you've been. Where have you traveled?
Oh man, literally everywhere. I just hit the last couple continents. So I've hit 6 continents, fly fishing for fish all over the planet, every place but Antarctica.
Man, so what got you started in travel? When did you start this?
Right when I started working for the shop, I guess it just slowly expanded out from there. I started in the fly shop, just in the retail department, and I was just fishing steelhead locally, and then was just super into steelhead. That's still like my bread and butter main event, my favorite thing in the world. And so my first expansion was into Canada, going up to the mecca of steelheading in BC, the Skeena system. And then those experiences kind of opened the door. Some of my guys, when they left Kamchatka, they brought me in over there. That's when I started doing the big stuff, but I was guiding. So I was just guiding the stuff that I'd already loved, mostly steelhead and trout. And then with those experiences, the opportunity came where the fly shop asked me to see if I wanted to be in our international travel department. And at that point, they wanted me to expand my worldview and go learn some other places so that I could talk them up and promote them. And so, yeah, then they started sending me around, and essentially, you just start looking at the places that you love, and then inviting your best guys to join you and go see them with you. And then, just takes time, and that experience builds, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a place where you got to see a lot of amazing stuff.
Do you mind if I ask how you got your job at the fly shop?
Yeah, it's a weird one. It just, it was just fate, I guess. I went to college at Chico State, and so I was already heavily hooked on steelhead fishing and just fishing every day after school and stuff. And then, but for the last 10 years prior to that, every summer throughout high school and college, I'd been going up to the summer camp in the Sierras. That's where I learned how to trout fish, fly fish for trout. I was graduating from college, and that job had kind of run its course. My mentor was not going to be there anymore, and I wasn't going to go there without him. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to graduate. My mom's hounding me what I'm going to do in the real world, and I didn't have many answers. Just was going to go be a bum. And that New Year's, I guess it was New Year's 2004, on New Year's in South Lake Tahoe, 3:00 in the morning, and I was reading California Fly Fisher, and there was a letter to the editor, and it was a thank you letter to everybody that had participated in this fly fishing summer camp called Fish Camp. And I was like, wow, That sounds awesome. You know, my skill set was in summer camps. My new passion was fly fishing. And so a couple of days later, when my mind got right, I called the fly shop and said, "Hey, what about this camp?" And they were like, "Yeah." So I went up to the fly shop and they hired me on just for the summer camp. And everything I owned was in the back of my pickup. I had no place to go. My days off, I was running up to the Umpqua to steelhead fish. And into the summer, they were like, "Hey, why don't you go ask at the shop some help?" And so I went down to the shop and they hired me into the store. So I moved to Reading.
That's great. So that was a good long time ago, almost 20 years maybe.
That was 2004. So yeah,
getting there,
getting there, 17 years.
So you've been, I know you most when it comes to fishing for wanting to swing for anadromous fish, and so I imagine that's your favorite thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what got me the bug, and it's still my favorite thing to do is chase big anadromous fish. Obviously, it started with steelhead fishing, and then you know from there I learned about other species that would take swung flies on spey rods, and then realized real quick that they were worth the pursuit as much as steelhead were. So, you know, what I call the grand slam of swing or the big four are steelhead, Atlantic salmon, Chinooks, and sea run browns. And so that's still kind of my top priority at the fly shop. You know, anybody that calls and wants to swing spey rods around the world, you know, that's what I'm gonna deal with first and foremost for all those four species for the most part.
So with those four species in mind, where are some of the places you've traveled to catch these fish?
Well, steelhead are indigenous to the entire North Pacific, the Ring of Fire. So from my backyard in Northern California, and then all the way through BC, Alaska, and then around into the Far East, Asian Far East, which is Kamchatka. That's the craziest off the grid spot for steelhead fishing. Chinook are the same exact range. Most of the stuff we send people for trips these days is British Columbia and Alaska, hands down, are the top dogs for destinations for kings. Atlantic salmon are obviously in the North Atlantic, and our focus for them, as far as where we send people, are the Kola Peninsula in Russia, just above Norway, and Iceland. They also got them in Canada as well. We don't do any business over there, but you know, that's still high on my list. It's a place I haven't been, a corner of the swing world I haven't explored yet. And then sea run brown trout are the same genus as Atlantic salmon, in the Salmo genus, same family, but they've kind of been destroyed in that North Atlantic range. There's some places that still have them, but just few and far between, kind of unfortunately, like, you know, lots of other things, steelhead and Chinook in our lower 48 here. So they were introduced to South America a long time ago, you know, 75 years ago. And so the greatest stronghold of sea run brown trout now are in Argentina, on the very tip, the very south island of Tierra del Fuego.
And so I know that's your passion. And one of the things that's amazing, I think I've brought this up on other podcasts. You were in Russia once. Well, you've done it more than once, but you were in Russia once for 40 days. And, you know, having the steelheaders, one of their ultimate dreams in Kamchatka. And then you and I went and fished the Trinity, and you caught a small steelhead, and you were so excited, and like it was like a look at this is awesome. And so that's where I really saw a passion for steelhead like I've never seen before. What is it about steelhead that you love so much?
I mean, just the places that they live is so amazing. I mean, you know, for around here, it's kind of the ultimate trophy fish. They get giant. They fight really hard. They live in amazing places, and they're super challenging to catch. So for a guy that fishes every day, you know, not to be spoiled or something, but you reach a point where 40, 12-inch fish isn't really going to float your boat. So you start like looking for bigger and harder. I got another story about that I think about often, but so that was the first big challenging fish that just the natural progression of where I live brought me, and no matter what you do, you can never, that doesn't ever get old, right? Like you just remember every fish that chooses to take a swung fly. It's not a numbers game. You know, I always ask guys if they catch 40 fish in a day, like how is number 17? And they can't recall it, right? Like the experience is amazing as a whole when you have a 40 fish day, but individually the fish have less power in your mind, you know, where when you have a 1 or 2 fish day, you know, those fish carry weight. They're really powerful to you. You feel, you're just so proud. And, you know, it changes everything, right? The difference between a 0 fish day and a 1 fish day is huge. So yeah, they've just always held that, where no matter how big they are, if you're steelhead fishing in some amazing place, like steelheaders, that's the thing that lots of people don't understand, that they talk to steelheaders, and steelheaders can be okay with no fish for days on end because they enjoy the process of swinging the fly in these amazing places, and it's okay. But when they get one, it's this amazing thing that they're willing to put in a lot more no fish days to experience it again. And I hope that never goes away for me. And yeah, in the Trinity, those are, you know, summer run fish. They're just much smaller, but I get as pumped on hooking a, you know, 22-inch steelhead on the Trinity in September on a dry fly as I do catching a 20-pound fish on the Babine in October in BC. You know, it's just, they're pretty special.
And for you, it's not just the fish too. You're all about the swing, right?
Yeah. You know, method is everything. And when I started, when I was in college in Northern California, and I was transitioning from a trout fly fisherman to steelhead, you'd go into the fly shops and say, "Hey, I want to catch steelhead." They'd be like, "Okay, you're going to fish in these places instead of these places." My backyard fishery was the Feather River in Orville, and the guys would give you, you know, the same stuff as we would fish for trout. So it was an easy transition, you know, but it was all nymphing. So we would fish little caddis flies, maybe eggs, stone flies, split shots, and bobbers. And then you know, once I got to the fly shop, I started meeting some, you know, amazing people, some hardcore OG steelhead fishermen that were like, "No, man, the old way, right, is about swinging." And another big one was Lonnie Waller's videos, the old 3M videos from the 80s. And Lonnie was fishing with single-handed rods, but he was swinging flies. And I'm like, whoa, we're not doing that. And those were on the Deschutes and up on the Babine. And that's where I was like, whoa, BC, I got to get up there. Those fish are monsters. When I got to the fly shop, I started meeting some of the guys that were like that. They were all swung fly guys, and they're like, "Man, you need to graduate and move up." Is that same transition from like, okay, the numbers isn't what's important to me anymore. I've caught plenty, and just the added joy and the added reward, I guess, of catching them this harder way, just made them that much more special, made each one more meaningful. And so I transitioned to that. And yeah, you know, it's there's a graduation to it. So, you know, when I was first doing it, I would be like, okay, I'm going to swing. These guys say the swing's the way. And I would swing for 8-9 hours straight, not catch a fish. And then I might cave in, and I'd grab the bobber rod, and then I'd go catch a fish on the bobber. And then I'd be mad at myself to be like, man, you caved in. You knew that fish was going to eat that bobber. If you'd only stayed true to the swing, maybe you could have caught that fish on the swing. And so it was that transition where it's just like, man, the only way you're going to gain the confidence to catch fish on the swing is not to have that backup, right? That if I was nymphing, I would be catching fish. Like, no, I'm going to catch them this way or I'm not going to catch them at all. Then it forced you to be like, okay, I'm going to catch them this way or no way. And then you were forced to be like, okay, I'm going to get him. I've caught a fish off that rock 100 times on a nymph. I know he's there. He's going to come get this. And then you started catching more when you didn't bail out. Your mind didn't, you didn't let your mind suck you into to what was known, what you knew would work. And you just be like, nope, this way. You knew they were there. And so you just stick to that, the new way. And once you started doing it, you're like, oh, I don't want to catch him any other way, man. Like, one of my favorite lines, the old timers, they'd always say, oh man, steelhead hit it like a freight train. And when you're nymphing, you'd always be like, what does that mean? Because nymphing's about the dead drift, right? There's slack. So fish would take a fly and you had to remove slack before you ever felt anything. And then when you finally started catching fish on the swing and that line is tight and it's going through the rock and a fish is there and you start getting butterflies in your chest and you're like, come on, baby. And all of a sudden, that thing just goes electric tight, like a piano string. And you're just like, wham. You're like, that's what the old man was talking about, dude. That freight train grab, that static line, like it's already tight. You don't have to remove slack. Boom. You just feel a weight and your line is ripping off your reel. You're like, man, I will wait 5 days for that to happen again instead of the old way.
Yeah, I've never fished for steelhead with a bobber, but occasionally I use a strike indicator. So,
well, that's the thing. But you fished for trout with a bobber, and that's what it is. I always tell guys, it's like, I'm not anti. If I'm trout fishing, they're eating nymphs. That's what they're doing, and our job as fly fishermen is max the hatch. If they're eating nymphs, then you do that. But I always think nymphing is trout fishing for steelhead, versus steelhead fishing is swinging flies, making them come choose you. They're not eating. They're on a spawn run. That's why we're fishing crazy attractor stuff, pinks, blues, all this weird stuff. We're not maxing hatch of anything. All you're doing is trying to convince this fish to come play a game with you and let him choose. Like running an egg through a slot takes a lot of his choice away. Just biologically, he's like, oh, I'm going to pick this egg up. But when you're running a, pink and blue intruder 3 feet over his head, 90% of those fish that would have eaten the egg that came through their grill, 90% of those fish, they're not going to come play the game. But now you're selectively choosing the most curious, the hottest, the most aggressive fish out of that school. And that's the guy you get to play with. I just think it's just the whole concept of swinging flies is amazing,
Yeah, it is. And one cool thing too is we've been to places together where I'm like, oh, this is a nymphing piece of water. And for you, it's like, no. I'm always going to swing. And it's cool. It's inspired me to want to swing more.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned the places where steelhead live, like no question. I mean, it's broader, but just the Pacific Northwest is so special. And one crazy thing about California too is my drive to your waters. I'm driving through arid desert, and then all of a sudden I'm in like cloudy, wet, big tree.
But that's the trippy thing about them too. And one of the most amazing things about steelhead is their ability to adapt to anything. So yeah, like we have them here in redwood rainforest, virgin growth, 350 foot tall trees. It's totally amazing. Obviously, absolutely beautiful. But, you can go to Idaho and fish them in that high desert. That's totally wide open. There are no trees. It's just rocks and grassy cliffs, and then you go to BC. It's totally different. Just mossy, crazy. You keep going north, you find them in the tundra. Kamchatka, total tundra type rivers. There's no wood debris. There's no rocks at all. It's just pea gravel. And so their ability to adapt to any condition. They're just like, okay, how are we going to survive here? Versus lots of stuff's like, we can't survive here. We're not even going to try. And so certain things will exist in certain types of water and not in others. Steelhead are like, we'll give it a whack, and they've adapted and they're so diverse. One of my favorite analogies is the Klamath versus the Smith in California, my backyard, and the mouths of those rivers are like 30 miles apart. If you're driving north on 101, you pass the Klamath. 30 miles later, you're at the mouth of the Smith, right at the Oregon border. Well, those two rivers both are super famous steelhead rivers. One of them is known for summer run half-pounder fish that are 18 to 20 inches long. The next one has the California state record winter fish, that's 29.7 ounces or something, 29 pound, 7 ounce, fish. And they're 30 miles apart, but the environments made them adapt totally different. One's a summer run river with thousands, used to be hundreds of thousands of smaller fish. That's how they can survive. The other one is a winter run fish. Size is how you survived getting through whitewater rapids to get to the top of your headwaters. The biggest survived. It just shows the adaptability of the fish. They're incredible.
And steelhead are rare, somewhat hard to find fish to some degree. And there are other creatures in a lot of these areas that are rare and hard to find too. It's where Bigfoot roams.
It's where Bigfoot roams, baby, for sure.
Cool. So, we've talked about Kamchatka in the past, but for those who haven't listened to those episodes, since we're talking about steelhead, share with us what the situation is with KSB.
So the Kamchatka Steelhead projects, we did a whole piece on this, but real quick, it's just the coolest model for a fishery, for a destination fishery that of anything else we sell. It's conservation based, and it's the longest running research project on steelhead in the entire world. Right? There's no real money in steelhead fishing. Like, people study salmon a lot because they're a food fish. We go out, we have commercial fleets and seasons for harvest because they feed people. Steelhead, not so much. They have no value to humanity really, other than this recreation, which people overlook because there's a lot of money in that too. They're worth a lot more alive than dead. You can buy a fish for $1 a pound. If it's dead, guys are paying $6,000 a week to put them back to catch 5 fish in a week. Do the math, man. They're worth a lot more alive than dead, right? But so this project, we go over there. It's for science. They're totally protected in Russia. It's illegal to catch steelhead. And so this research project, basically, we want to study this fish because it's rare, not because they've degraded it like we have here. They're rare here because we messed it up. We were not good. And so they're endangered. Right over there, they just biologically, they chose not to be abundant. The rivers, just like the Klamath and the Smith analogy in Kamchatka, the rivers next to the steelhead rivers are the greatest rainbow trout fisheries on earth. And we send guys to the Sedanka and the Tagil system. Well, they're all rainbows. They're the same species as the rainbow, right? Oncorhynchus micus. And so those fisheries, those fish adapted to be like, we're going to be healthy and be able to reproduce, and our population will thrive without going to the ocean. Well, in Russia, in Kamchatka, the rivers that the steelhead live in are terrible rainbow trout rivers. The rainbows couldn't survive. So the steelhead adapted anadromy because it's the only thing that worked. So they only have 5 or 6 real rivers with abundant populations of steelhead. And instead of Russia being like, let's, open season and destroy them and we'll protect them when they're almost dead like we have, they're like, okay, they're rare. Let's protect them while they're still abundant. And so that's why they put them in the Red Book. But we get to go see populations that are totally healthy, like historic high populations with the fringe groups. Like all rivers have a biodiversity where you have different what are called life history strategies, where the big fish that go to the ocean for 3 years and then come back and we like, that's a big steelhead. Those are called anadromous A, but there are also anadromous B, which came in as half pounders like the Klamath at 16 inches, but then they went to the salt a second time. Then they came back. They look like anadromous A, but that's their second turn. And then you have all these other things. The interesting thing is there are a very small population of resident rainbow trout in those rivers that are always male. Only the males will stay in the river and be like, I can survive here. Like 10 of us can survive here as rainbows and just be lazy and never get big. And those fish are like 14-inch fish, and a bunch of them we've caught multiple times and tagged them, which tells us there's not a lot of them. Everyone we've ever done is male. And basically the theory is the males, doesn't matter for size, if they can basically be sneaky and spawn with a female, then their genes, you know, their family can live on. Where a female, there is no benefit to staying, you know, being small. She only laid 10 eggs, 15, whatever, you know, 300 eggs. There's still not a lot. They didn't survive. The population dies. If she goes to the ocean and comes back at 35 inches, she lays 5,000 eggs. 2 or 3 survive. The whole species survives. So the females are like, size directly gets me more eggs in the ground, and we survive. A couple lazy males are like, I can try to cheat.
How many days would you say in all these years between the Kamchatka Steelhead Project and then the trout fishing have you spent there?
In Russia?
Mm-hmm.
I did the math a while ago. I mean, I used to stay for like 4 months straight, where I would do all of trout season, basically all July, August, and September, and then switch mid-September to steelhead until the end of October. I added it all up. I think I'm over 2 years on the ground there over the course of 13 years.
Wow. And I'm sure that your experiences have been extraordinary on and off the water. What are some of the cool things you've experienced in Russia that don't involve fishing?
Oh man, I got some really cool ones. Just seeing other animals, you know, the friends I've made and the connections I've made with people, which are so amazing. Too often today, you know, I hear about Russia's our enemy, and yeah, politically maybe we don't see eye to eye and stuff, but nobody could ever tell me that the Russian people are my enemy, man. I got some of my best friends over there that yeah, just are the best. And that's always going to be the most important thing to me, is the connections with people you make when you travel, just understanding that they're not different, that everybody loves the same stuff. And good people are good people, regardless what the news says about, you know, their government or something. But as far as cool stories and other awesome stuff, one of my favorite things ever was, you know, often the clients paying for these trips is what fund the operations, right? And helicopters are really expensive, and helicopters are awesome, but helicopters like cheating, right? And when we have 12 anglers splitting the cost of helicopters, we get in and out really efficiently, but that's expensive. And so to get into the Kamchatka Steelhead Project a couple of times to set up camps before the clients are there sponsoring the helicopter, essentially, I rode tanks into camp. Oh, no we would load these things up. They're, you know, armored personnel carriers. They don't have turrets and giant freaking guns on the top, but they're tanks on giant, you know, tracks, not wheels. And we'd load them up with the gasoline and the wood for building and some food stuff. And, you know, what takes an hour in a helicopter took us 5.5 days in this tank. And yeah, we had some serious stories. One year we had 2 tanks working together to get out there. It took 5.5 days for about 300 kilometers of cross-country travel. We broke 9 axles. We slipped off the tracks a dozen times. Have to undo all the tracks, pulley system them, get them all back going. My chair was a 50-gallon drum of diesel with a bag of rice if I was stuck inside. If it was snowing over a couple passes and we had to sit inside, most of the time we'd sit on top of the tank with shotguns and shoot ptarmigan off the track in front of the tank. The tank wouldn't even stop. We'd jump off the tank, go grab our birds, jump back on the tank. Lunchtime, we'd pull the feathers and cook them up for lunch. It was epic experience.
That's amazing. And then, yeah, of course, you've shared stories in the past about big bears and moose. It's just amazing. And I know very well that you have good friends in Russia, and you also have good friends who are Denver Broncos fans. So
That are what?
Denver Broncos fans.
Denver Broncos fans, not in Russia.
I know, but you were saying earlier that you look at people's character, and it's not like politics. But you also have friends who support the Broncos in the U.S.
I support the Broncos?
No, you have friends who do.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge minus, but I mean I can look past it for some of them. If they have other good traits, then I might be able to look past it.
Oh man, you've done. We talk all the time, but when I think of you, I think of anadromous fish. But you spend a lot of time in saltwater too.
Yeah, I've been doing more and more salt. It's just such an amazing game. It's totally different. And I got a lot of respect for the guys that can guide that, because it's no place for a ginger like me, I'll tell you that. So, a week or two, and I absolutely enjoy the fishing, but man, I'm miserable in that heat without fish like that. You can keep it. I'd rather be cold than hot any day, but yeah, saltwater fish are so cool. It goes with what I was saying, with the size and the challenge and just the methodology. You're all sight casting and, making one good shot, where, steelhead fishing is a volume business. The guy who casts the most and the furthest, or the most accurately, not necessarily furthest, but the most, who covers the water is catching the most fish. And that's not the case with salt. You might go all day and make 3 casts. So it's about hunting and searching. It's really cool.
That is cool. Where are some of the places you've gone in the salt?
Well, for North Americans like me, our backyard is the Caribbean for sure. So I've spent most of my time fishing in Mexico, Belize, the Bahamas. Those are kind of our bread and butter. I actually just got into our own lower 48 this year. Did some red fishing for the first time. Obviously, Florida's a killer saltwater fishery that I've never done. But that Caribbean. Say what?
I'm shocked that you'd never gone after redfish or fish in Florida.
I'd done it once with a buddy in Texas, and just he had his own boat, and it was awesome. But just for like an afternoon together. Just this November, I went down and did a liveaboard for 4 days in the Mississippi Delta in Louisiana, and it was crazy good. And I got to dress like a steelheader, which was cool.
Right.
Freezing cold and raining is definitely my kind of saltwater fishing.
That's funny. You were just in the Seychelles.
Yeah. So then, after I've done a bunch in the Caribbean, I've expanded out a little bit, chased roosters in Baja, and then I got to Australia and got to do Cape York, looking for some wonky, crazy fish over there. We caught like 41 species for the week, including, well, I won't do the including part, but yeah, crazy stuff. And then, I finally made it over. The top fish on my hit list of crazy big aggro fish has been the GT forever. And I just got that done in April, targeted GTs at Provenance Atoll in the Indian Ocean. Man, it exceeded my expectations, which was not an easy thing to do.
That's amazing. And you know, for those who are listening, one of the things that just came to mind is some of your trips have been documented. There's a great film from Yeti, the Kamchatka Steelhead Project, that's available on YouTube and then on Yeti's channel. And then Eastern Rises. I mean, Felt Soul Media. That was actually both films were Felt Soul Media. But Eastern Rises is a favorite among a lot of people. And you're there fishing in Kamchatka for trout. And that was early on when you were at the fly shop, huh? Maybe a couple years after.
That was my first week ever in Russia.
No
so I got to roll with Ben and Travis and Frank and Ryan and my boy Greg. And that was Greg and I's first week of guiding ever in Kamchatka. And so we got to run through Moscow doing all the there's a bunch of video footage in Moscow and stuff, and we'd never even been to Kamchatka. And so I always look back on that movie with fond memories because it caught so much of like the awe in our faces that, we weren't old hat veterans. We were fish bums getting the opportunity of a lifetime and getting to see it for the first time ever. So yeah, we were just babies. 2008, man. I think I was 28, 27 years old or something. And yeah, those guys killed it. Looking back, man, it was a long time ago, man. They had that was pre-drone. So these boys had brought like a 15-foot expandable stick, a boom to get those overhead shots and stuff. Like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that movie's sounds weird, but yeah, it's classic now.
Yeah, it is. It is classic. I think I own it on DVD and I got it on Vimeo. I can't remember where else it's available, but that's a great film.
It's hard to find, man. I can't find my copy. I was looking the other day. They got it on Amazon. Like 3 left by now. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah. A lot of those Felt Soul films, I wish the whole catalog was available online because they're so good.
Totally. Yeah, but those guys are too good and they got to eat.
Yeah.
You got to support your local artists. You know what I mean?
No,
go buy them.
No, I think they should sell them for sure.
Absolutely.
But I don't want them to go away. I don't want them to disappear.
Me neither.
And then there was a film of you going after Atlantic salmon that came out maybe a year ago.
Yeah, I got lucky and got to hang out with Yako when he was doing the Karlovka film. That was like 5 years ago, 2017 or something. That was really good. Captain Jack video, and then we got a new one coming out from Fly Fishing Nation. Those boys are awesome, hardcore dudes. And I haven't even seen the final cut on that sucker yet, but it looks really good. That's on a new destination that the fly shop is representing called the Kohler Reserve. It's a really cool story. In a place as famous as the Kola Peninsula, there are these kind of 2 hidden gems that were privately held for a long time that became available to the public. They built a lodge and we're going to send people. Crazy thing is, we did that in 2019. We filmed that video, and then we were going to send the first people in 2020, and we've been shut out ever since. So like that video's coming out, and we've been promoting it, and for 2 years we haven't even been able to get any clients in there. So man, really excited for 2022 on the Kohler Reserve to get guys in there to go experience that fishery.
There's another Fly Fishing Nation film that did get on a film tour where you guys are lighting off flares and stuff, and
that's the one.
Oh, okay.
That's the one.
Yeah, I'm psyched about that one.
Yeah, no, it's sweet. They did a great job. There's some really just funny funny stuff about the crew and everybody, and just hunting down this new fishery. I can't wait to get people to go experience it too.
Cool. Yeah. That's right. Because you were talking about how epic it was and you couldn't believe it and you couldn't wait to get people there, and then COVID stepped in.
Yeah. We did. I mean, 2019, we did it and got the video and everything. And yeah, then the 2 inaugural seasons back to back canceled. So yeah, 2022 is going to be giant.
That's great. Can't wait to see it. Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned you've been to pretty much everywhere except Antarctica, I think. You've been to Africa. We mentioned the flats fishing, but I know that you did some tiger fishing too.
Yeah, man, I got to go with the boys at African Waters, and man, that was one of the coolest trips I've ever been on, hands down. I mean, just the the uniqueness of it, and for a guy like me, it's a dark continent, man. Like, we just don't get to go over there every day, and I'd been watching their work and all the cool places they were doing, and obviously the tiger fish was at the top of that list. And I was bummed that we weren't working with them, and I knew it was getting more popular. Guys were calling us and asking about it, and we're like, oh, well, we don't represent them, we don't know anything about it. And then the guys came over here, so they came to the States in like late October. And they were just kind of doing a tour of the West, and they were doing a bunch of presentations for local clubs. And so they reached out to us, and they were like, hey, we'd love to like come by and stop and say hi. And we were like, hey, why don't you come to our local fly fishing club meeting in Reading? We'll host you. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to work together. So it'd be a great opportunity to meet. And so Mike Mitchell, the owner of the fly shop, he's like, you take care of them. I was like, sweet, right on. So they came to town, took them to Mexican food. They never had Mexican food. And so we hung out, and then they're like, yeah, let's go get some beers to hand out at the presentation. I'm like, great idea. So we hit a liquor store, and then I was like, man, I really want to do this stuff with you guys. Like, I can't wait to watch this presentation tonight and learn more. And the guys were like, well, you should come next week. We had a cancellation. You should come. I'm like, I'm in, of course, but man, that's, it's kind of, long shot. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, man, I got to push on this. And I was like, listen, okay, here, make sure that you keep giving more beers to Mike, let's see what happens. And sure enough, after the show and stuff, we pull Mike in, we're saying thank you to them. And I'm like, hey, Mike, they invited me to come next week, and we could plan a trip for a year from now. And then, I would come back with a report. It might make it in the catalog a year after that. We might be sending guys 2 years from now. Or I could go next week, and you're writing the catalog right now. We could have it in people's hands in our catalog in a month, and we're in the game like instant. And he's like, what tickets are going to be expensive? And I just Google it on my phone right there in front of the guys. I'm like, it's like $900 for tickets. And he's like, book it. I was like, yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I literally bought that ticket like 5 days before the trip. Had no planning at all, and just was ecstatic, and rolled out there with those guys, and it was next level. It was just amazing. The fishery is totally protected. It's on a hunting lease, so that nobody else is allowed on that hunting concession, this giant preserve, and so I mean the fishery is pure, doesn't get poached, doesn't get overfished. It's just next level. They had 2 camps. One was their main camp, and then they had a satellite camp on a different river, the Rahuji and the Minyera, and so the second camp, they put you in the iconic Land Rover, full hunting style, where you're sitting on the roof and benches with gun rest bars, and drive you cross country for like 2 hours to get to the other camp. And they're like, well, we apologize about the, the long transfer. And it was one of the highlights of the thing, right? Like, we saw herds of elephants, saw every antlered, horned, whatever critter out there. I saw, sables and oryx, and man, we saw a lion. They said they only saw 3 lions for the whole year, and I got the privilege of seeing one. Warthogs, pigs, just everything, man. It was incredible. While we were fishing, we got chased by hippos. It was just mind blowing. And, if you like jungle fishing, if you like, the peacock bass and the golden dorado, the tigers are next level, man. Crazy toothy sucker, just unbelievable. And, they're getting up to 28, 29 pounds, breaking off 30s and stuff. To just savages.
That's amazing. And
yeah,
that's not the only place where you've done jungle fishing. You've done some in South America too.
Yeah. So, that was, what I'd known was from the Amazon stuff. I've done the golden dorado in Bolivia, and then the peacock bass thing. And yeah, so yeah, the tigers fit right into that jungle fishing style, just big, deep sink tips and streamers. I caught a lot of tigers on poppers though. Amazingly big fish that would come smash top water, which is really special. And yeah, it was right there. Yeah. If you like jungle fishing in the Amazon, man, Africa is where it's at.
And getting out of the Amazonian destinations, where are some of the other places you've been in South America?
I mean, South America's super diverse, right? So definitely you want to break that up into 2 categories: the jungle and then the cold water salmonids. So in the jungle, I've just done Bolivia golden dorado and Marie peacocks. I'm heading back down in November. Gonna get another go at the peacocks, and then I'm gonna hit the Arapaima at Piracu. I'm really, really excited about that. But I still got a whole bunch of things I gotta see down there. I really want to get after those vampire fish, the Payara at Xingu. That's top list for jungle. And Kenjam just looks incredible for gin clear sight casting. So definitely more to explore in the Amazon for sure. And then South America, I mean, the cold water stuff, what I think, if someone says I want to go fly fishing in South America, I think about Patagonia and the trout fisheries. And I don't know much down there. Trout is actually not my area of expertise in the shop. I'm the anadromous guy. Obviously rainbows in Kamchatka is my jam, but we got big experts for Alaskan rainbows and Patagonian rainbows. So I don't really have a ton of experience there. I do the Tierra del Fuego. I have hit Lake Strobel, Jurassic Lake, and that thing's incredible too, but not too much of the other trouty stuff. So
yeah. What do you have coming up? I'm sure you got some, you mentioned a couple, but what are some of your upcoming travel plans?
The big one for this year. So, I'm going to Alaska to guide for a couple months. I'm going to hit my Lava Creek Lodge. I guided there, getting locked out of Russia is heartbreaking. But last year I jumped up and got to go to our Lava Creek Lodge. I'd fished there before. I'd brought a group in there for kings, and they're awesome. I love the owner, Phil's my boy. So he was like, yeah, come up and guide with us for coho season. So I did that last year and just fell in love with my crew, man. They were just my people. And so I was bummed that Russia got canceled again, but I was super stoked to be able to go back up to Lava and do that again with them. And then when I'm done with that, I'll probably knock down to last year I got hooked up with and met the crew through Frank Smethurst, who I met on Eastern Rises, and have since, is one of my best friends, and he invited me to come see his new steelhead operation at the Alaska Steelhead Company, and I met the owner of that operation, and Matt Sprecher. He's my dog too now, and he came out this winter and steelhead fished with me on the Smith. Epic. So when I get done guiding the lava, I'll go check out a group. I put together a whole group for Alaska Steelhead Company at the back end of my guide season. Get to do that, and then I'll come home for a little bit, and then head back to the jungle for peacocks and arapaima, and then Caribbean in March for my pilgrimage to Espiritu Santo Bay Lodge, my favorite Caribbean fishery, for perm skis, and then yeah, geez, I can't think much further than that, but I'm sure there's something.
Well, that's a bit. That's good.
Yeah. Always gotta have something out there, keeping you excited to move forward.
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you for hours about this. So hopefully, if it's cool with you, this can be part one of a series, because I can't wait to hear what unfolds. And, there's so many separate destinations too, where, we could do one on the jungle. We could do one on, Atlantic salmon. And so, I'd love to keep the conversation going in future episodes, because I don't see you slowing
Brother,
down.
I'll roll with you any day. You know that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. And for those who want to learn more, Justin Miller is at the Fly Shop in Redding, California, theflyshop.com, and on social media at _fly_shop on Instagram. They're also on Twitter and Facebook. Be sure to check them out. Thanks, Justin.
Right on, brother. Thanks for having me, man. Look forward to the next time.